Islamic perspective. Uh, so tonight the focus is on his literary works. The literary output that he put out is truly awe-inspiring. William Chittick regards it as perhaps the most obvious of the miraculous sides to the career of the greatest master. There's a Turkish scholar by the name of Osman Yahya who documented Ibn Arabi's literary production in a 2-volume history and classification of his writings. There he estimated that Ibn Arabi wrote 700 books, treatises, and collections of poetry, of which 400 are still extant. Among the 300 lost works is known to be a commentary on the Quran, which, even though it remained incomplete, was composed of some 64 volumes. This begs the question, why did Ibn Arabi write so many thousands of pages? In 1989, when William Chittick published his first massive volume of translations from Ibn Arabi's masterpiece, the Meccan Revelations, at least one of his critics found that several passages translated in this new book, The Sufi Path of Knowledge, from the Futuhat, were unduly long for the presentation of a point under consideration. So in his next book, Chittick responded, "This is actually a legitimate concern. Why take the time to read such a prolific and admittedly difficult author? Surely we can learn what he has to offer by reading a 2-page encyclopedia summary and be done with it." There are, in fact, several good summaries of Ibn Arabi's life and thought available, most notably in the Encyclopedia of Islam. However, they can do little more than outline the bare bones of his cosmology, epistemology, psychology, etc. Due to the limitations of space, they have no choice but to disregard the flesh and blood that give life to his writings. Okay, I'm just going to go through my list. I see that Nasreen is here. I'm wondering if you'd feel up to reading our first item. I'll see if I can screen share here properly. There it is. That's not working, is it? Sorry, I didn't do that properly. Here it is. Let's try that. Nasreen, are you okay with? Nasreen, what happened? I guess she doesn't want to read.
She's muted.
She's muted, Mark. She's
Oh, I
muted.
can't see her picture. Sorry. Okay. Can you unmute yourself, Nasreen?
I just asked her to unmute.
Mm-hmm.
That better?
There we go. Good.
There it is. Okay, technical difficulties are just proliferating tonight.
But I have to come close so I can see better.
Okay.
The living body of his works is woven from the Quran, the Hadith, the Sharia, the Islamic intellectual tradition in general, the Sufi tradition in particular. God's self-disclosure is found in the embodiment of Islamic experience, much more clearly than in dry, what's this? Dry bones that can be, if we are so minded, extracted from body to be studied anatomically, or as one says nowadays.
That's a mouthful. That's architectonically.
Architect.
I think, yeah, that's a technical term that comes from, I think, what's his name? I just have I can see his face.
Like
French
25.
scholar. Oh, for crying out loud. Help me out, Jack. Who is it? Anyway, it's not important.
Teilhard de Chardin?
No,
Is it
it's
Cobain?
no. Anyway, sorry, I should have had that name at the top of my head. I didn't.
Architect, as French scholar.
Anyway, so if we allow our 21st century penchant for getting to the point to guide our encounter with Ibn Arabi, we will miss the extraordinary riches he has to offer. How about you, Heather? How about number 2 here?
To get to the point is to bring about closure, but there is no closure with Ibn Arabi, only disclosure. Ibn Arabi has no specific point to which he wants to get. He is simply flowing along with the infinite diverse self-disclosures of God. And he is suggesting to us that we leave aside our artificialities and recognize that we are flowing along with him. There is no point because there is no end.
So to reflect for a second, why do we insist on the authors we read getting to the point quickly as possible? Is there in fact another more fruitful way to read a mystic of Ibn Arabi's stature? So these are Chittick's thoughts on this very interesting topic. How about you, Carol? Number 3 here.
Okay, number 3, the
Please.
attempt to make Ibn Arabi come to the point typically so that we can place him into this category or that, too often manifests our own desire to bring his writings into line with our own predispositions and prejudices. In the traditional Islamic context, he and other great figures were almost never studied with the aim of classifying them or dominating over them through overarching claims to intellectual authority. On the contrary, they were approached with humility and the recognition that they have something real and profound to teach, something that the rest of us do not have. William Chickett, The Self-Disclosure of God, and pages 11 to 12.
Thank you. So I thought this was a very important point. This is how I actually am approaching Ibn Arabi and Sri Aurobindo and Ken Wilber. Okay, these guys have something to offer, you know, something that we don't have. So I go with a sense of humility, and I like to, I do critique some of the things they say, but for the most part, I like to give them the space to say what they want. To see how, and you'll see in some cases how close they came to what Baha'u'llah approved in his own writings. Anyway, okay. So we must remember that Ibn Arabi was not a philosopher, though. He was a visionary. Therefore, his primary goal was not to systematize Islamic thought. Okay, so let's see who else we got. Lori, are you able to read tonight?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great.
Is it number 4, Mark?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
He is a sage who has a vision of reality that he is trying to communicate through all the means at his disposal, including logical discourse in the philosophical and theological style, exegesis of the Quran and Hadith and poetry.
So he'll use just about any style of communicating he has at his disposal. And you'll see lots of examples of the high-mindedness that he has. So this is not to say that the content that Ibn Arabi shares isn't worthy of our attention. Far from it. The world he documents is fascinating and frequently bewilderingly mysterious. However, to my mind, the greatest gift he offers us is the endless demonstration of how to see the world around ourselves with eyes that are open to the divine. If I had never read his writings, I would have no idea what a radical difference it makes to visualize everything as a self-disclosure of God. Literally everything. So, Ibn Arabi's Al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, which is translated as the Meccan Openings or the Meccan Revelations, is his masterwork. It is a vast encyclopedia of the Islamic sciences, often called the Bible of esoteric Islam. It deals with metaphysical theories, mystical experiences, and various esoteric sciences, visions, and speculations. Ibn Arabi regularly says that human effort can only take seekers as far as the door, as he puts it. Having reached the door, he advises us to sit down and knock on the door as many times as we like. It's up to God to decide when and if he will open the door. And he alone decides what to give the seeker once he does open. This image of opening the door explains the title of his magnum opus, the Meccan Openings. These are things that occurred while he was circumambulating in Mecca. By his own assertion, he did not acquire the sciences contained in this work by study or discursive reasoning. They were simply given to him when God opened the door for him. Here is his own description of the process whereby one attains to opening. Let's see. How about you, Belinda? Number 5. Excuse me.
Here you go. When the aspiring traveler clings to retreat and invocation of God's name, when he empties his heart of reflective thoughts, and when he sits in poverty, having nothing at the door of his Lord, then God will bestow upon him and give him something of knowledge of him, of the divine mysteries and of the lordly sciences. That is why Abu Yazid el-Bistami has said, "You take your knowledge dead from the dead, but I take my knowledge from the living one who does not die."
So in Ibn Arabi's case, when the door was opened for him, he found that he had inherited all the sciences of Muhammad. Now, sciences is not used in the same sense as it is today. That was the Islamic sciences, which revolve around the Quran. There are many, many of them. Well, while we're there, sorry, yes.
Could I just make a brief comment about how he acquired this knowledge? I can't remember if I read it in my own research, because I'm writing this book on the 7 valleys or in your notes. But he said that he had a dream of the Prophet Muhammad. Is that in your notes, or did I read that
Yes.
somewhere else?
Yes, you did. Well, I don't know if it's in tonight's, but I think it is actually.
And the Prophet had a book in his hand.
Correct. Oh, what happened? You froze.
Mm,
Boy, we're really having a great time here tonight.
In the Meccan
There we go.
Revelations, but he
Oh, gee, what's going
claimed
on?
that he was commissioned by the Prophet in a vision to write the book.
Yes, that had to do with the second one we're going to deal with, the Basils of Wisdom, Fusus al-Hikam. Okay, let me see. I'll go back to screen sharing. Share, and I'll go to 6. Okay. Okay, I guess I was going to ask David Erickson if he would read now that we've made a connection with you, if you wouldn't mind reading 6, David. Oops. You're still muted. Oh, there you are. Oh, no. There.
There we go. Okay. Number 6.
Yes, please.
Among these sciences was the knowledge that no one after him, except Jesus, at the end of time, will receive this inheritance in its fullness. Hence, Ibn Arabi saw himself as the seal of Muhammadan friendship. That is, the last person to actualize fully the specific mode of friendship that results from embodying the paradigm established by Muhammad.
Okay. So I should qualify this and say that that's not to say that there wouldn't be any friends of God after him. Rather, it means that no one after him except Jesus will inherit the totality of the prophetic works, states, and stations realized by the Prophet Muhammad. That's what he understood as being the seal of the saints.
Jack, Mark,
Yes, please.
can we assume that the Jesus referred to there is the second coming of Jesus and therefore Baha'u'llah?
Actually, it's not quite. And my next paragraph after this next reading is going to describe exactly where I stand on that.
Okay.
Okay. Do you want to read number 7 for us, though, Bob, while you're online here?
Okay. Ibn al-Arabi's claim to be the seal of Muhammadan friends is, of course, rather grandiose. Many scholars in both the pre-modern Islamic world and the modern West have dismissed it. Nevertheless, the fact remains that no one after Ibn al-Arabi has come close to matching the profundity, freshness, and detail of his vision. Whether or not we accept his claim, it is difficult to deny him the title of greatest master.
Okay. So, according to various hadith, Jesus will return before the day of judgment and destroy the Antichrist, who towards the end of time presents an inverted version of spirituality, misleading humanity in a final and fatal delusion. Then Jesus, it is said, will bring the cycle of Adamic manifestation to an end and inaugurate another in what is in effect the second coming. Now that's from the Concise Encyclopedia of Islam. I find it quite interesting that they chose to refer to it as the end of the cycle of Adamic manifestation. Couldn't get much clearer. So from the Baha'i perspective, this is understood as Jesus returning in the form of the Bab. Okay. So anyway, so what exactly is an opening? The opening of the door that we were talking about. So I have 2 examples to share with you, and they're from far afield. The first one is from far afield. It's a secular one, while the second is within the Islamic context, and it's very religious. So in the first example, as a young man of 21, the world-renowned German poet Johann Wolfgang von Goethe pursued his study of law in Strasbourg in Alsace, France, which is right on the border with Germany. While there, Goethe had an experience which would shape his later investigations into nature's secrets. Like many who visited the city, Goethe was struck by its Gothic cathedral, which was the world's tallest building for more than 200 years. And interestingly enough, I just happen to have a photograph of the exterior of this particular one. I also have the interior. Oh, why is that showing? Okay, but the important issue will come from the exterior. So Goethe was a sufferer of vertigo, so its height was especially arresting in his case. He became fascinated with the building, observing it under several different conditions. He paid attention to the way in which various angles of light affected its appearance, As he put it, the sublime has entered into alliance with the pleasing. He made many sketches of the building from as many perspectives as he could. He even forced himself to climb its tower in order to cure himself of his vertigo. At a small, unprotected platform just below the tower's summit, Goethe would repeatedly endure the giddiness that came over him until he had conquered it. We need to go back to the readings. Okay, so I know who would be a perfect person to do this. Is Ingrid there?
Yes, yes, and I was just in Strasbourg last December,
Okay.
and that whole square in front of the cathedral was a beautiful Christmas market.
Fantastic. And I'm hoping I'll learn how to say his name properly by hearing you.
Okay, so just before leaving Strasbourg to return to Frankfurt, Goethe mentioned to some friends that, in his opinion, the tower was incomplete, and he made a sketch of what it would have looked like had the original design been followed. A friend who knew of the cathedral's original plans confirmed that Goethe's suspicions were correct. Indeed, the tower as they knew it was not as it had initially been planned, and Goethe's sketch had got it right. Goethe's friend asked him who had told him of this, as it was not common knowledge. Goethe replied that the tower itself had told him, "I observed it so long and so attentively, and I bestowed on it so much affection, that it decided at the end to reveal to me its manifest secret."
There's a lesson in there for us, I think, about studying something, loving something to the point where you can penetrate its secrets. A Goethe scholar by the name of Hans Gebert remarked that through observation, exercise, and mental effort, he had penetrated to an imperceptible reality, the idea of the architect. In other words, and this is the point of sharing the story with you, Goethe had hit upon knowledge that was otherwise inaccessible, in this case through his imagination. So here's an example outside of the Islamic tradition of the imagination, the role of that world. What helped Goethe in this case was his developed inner life, which philosopher Robert McDermott describes as the painstakingly trained process by which the sympathetic personal knower imaginatively gleans the ideal form of each physical object and natural process. Okay, so let's turn to a second example, a religious one. So let's look at an autobiographical account by one of Ibn Arabi's followers, Abdurrazzaq Kashani, who died in 1335, so all 95 years after Ibn Arabi. His commentary on Ibn Arabi's Basils of Wisdom is one of the most highly regarded of the dozens of commentaries produced to date. Kashani was one of the famous or foremost practitioners of the science and art of Tahwil, which is a deep esoteric understanding of a text. He was the author of Tahwil al-Quran, a work that has often been attributed to Ibn Arabi himself. At the very beginning of this work, Kashani explains why he wrote the book and how he came to have mastery over the science of Tahwil. Okay, this is a bit of a long one. Let's see who can take care of this for us. Try not to repeat too many times. Is Wendy James on the line? I haven't been able to see who's here.
I don't think Wendy's here tonight, Mark.
Okay. How about Bob Mather?
No.
Okay. How about Bill Kelly?
Bill's here.
Yeah, but is he willing?
Here he
Of
comes.
course he is. I volunteer him.
I used
All
to
right.
dedicate myself to recitation of the Quran, and I used to ponder its meanings with the strength of faith. all the time persevering in my litanies. Persevering in my litanies. But my breast was constricted and my heart upset, even though the Quran's meanings did not bring about the opening of my heart, my Lord did not turn my attention away from them. Finally, I became intimate and familiar with them. I tasted the sweetness of their cup and their drink. Now I was joyful in soul, opened in breast, ample in mind, expanded in heart, spacious in inmost mystery, glad in moment and state, happy in spirit, all through that opening. Openings seemed to come constantly as both an evening drop and a morning drop. At each verse, meanings were unveiled to me that my tongue fell short of explaining. My power was not equal to recording and listing them. My strength had not the endurance to spread and expose them. Then I remembered the words of the prophet. There is no verse of the Quran that does not have an outward sense, an inward sense, a limit, and a place to which one may ascend. From it, I understood that the outward sense is tafsir, the inward sense is tawil, the limit is the meaning of the word beyond which understandings go no further, and the place to which one may rise up from the meaning in order to witness the all-knowing King.
Thank you. So just as a teaser, let me say that all the qualities that Kashani correlates with opening have to do with the expansiveness and intimacy that results from establishing a relationship with the Quranic names of beauty and mercy, not the names of majesty. Okay, so this particular quote continues for number 9, and maybe Sherry could finish that off, if that's all right.
As for Tawil, it differs according to the states and moments of the listener in the levels of the wayfaring and the disparity of his degrees. Whenever he rises beyond his present station, the door to a new understanding is opened to him. Through it, he becomes aware of a subtle meaning already there. I do not maintain that I have reached the limit in what I have set down. By no means. For the modalities of understanding are not exhausted by what I have understood. God's knowledge is not delimited by what I have come to know. At the same time, my understanding does not stop with what I have mentioned. On the contrary, often so many senses have occurred to me in the written word that I have been perplexed at all the things they embrace.
So this gives you sort of an up-close personal account of some of the 70-some meanings of every verse of the Quran. Right? That only a manifestation of God can really unpack properly. But people who love the text, who spend a lot of time thinking about it, dwelling on it, praying about it, will have things come up from those other levels of meaning. And so I wanted to share this particular account with you because I thought it was eloquently spoken. So just going back to Ibn Arabi's Meccan Revelations for a minute, the critical edition begun by Osman Yahya in the late 1960s is expected to fill more than 15,000 pages when it is finished. It includes 560 chapters, several of which would be major books if published separately. Okay, so let's hear a little bit more about the detail of that. Let's see who else is around. How about Joey? Number 11.
This compendium of all the religious and Gnostic sciences in Islam is a vast and bewildering ocean of inspirations. Among the subjects treated are the meanings of all Islamic ritual observances, the stations and states the travelers undergo on their journey to God, and in God, the significance and nature of each ontological level in the cosmos, the spiritual and ontological meaning of the letters of the Arabic alphabet, the meaning of the different Quranic verses and hadiths from the points of view of various stations of mystical knowledge, the sciences embraced by each of the 99 names of God, and the psychological and the spiritual influences of various prophets.
That's just a high level overview of the kind of thing that he's talking about. In essence, what Ibn Arabi accomplishes in this one stunning work is a synthesis, evaluation, and extension of the work of all the Sufis who had gone before him in the previous 400 years. But astonishingly, Ibn Arabi tells us that he is only scratching the surface of what he could tell us. Let's see what he says here, number 12. I see that Suzanne is with us. Maybe you could read this.
Yes, I will. I have a bit of a weak connection here, but as he remarks matter-of-factly, and one suspects without exaggeration, what we deposit in every chapter in relation to what we have is but a drop in the ocean. In 190 chapter section of the Futuhat, he provides in each chapter a list of the related topics which he could have discussed, and these lists alone will fill more than 400 pages of the Futuhat in its new edition.
That's amazing. I don't know about you, but anyway, thank you. The ocean of divine truths that this one work presents is awe-inspiring in both quantity and quality. A book published in 1993 by the prominent French scholar of Ibn Arabi, Michel Chodkiewicz, is appropriately entitled An Ocean Without Shore. However, that's not the only difficulty that Ibn Arabi presents to potential readers, if you weren't daunted already. Let me see here. Is Hangame on tonight? Sorry, I can't see the list of people.
I don't think so, Mark.
No, okay. Zilda is though, maybe she can read this. Number 13. She's still there?
Yeah, and I think you're unmuted, Zilda. Are you there, Zilda?
Uh-oh. Got her out. Let's see. I know Ben's on. How about that? Ben, number 13 for us. Oh, there's Zilda. Oh, she just popped up, but she's muted.
So number 13?
Yes, please.
Okay. The problem is not simply the sheer volume of his production. His whole corpus stands at an extremely high level of sophistication and demands familiarity with all the Islamic sciences. This helps explain why the Sheikh Al-Akbar, in spite of the intrinsic interest of his works and his widespread influence, has been relatively neglected by modern scholars.
Oh, okay. All righty. So as you can imagine, as an author writing 800 years ago, Ibn Arabi's works refer to the terminology, structures, and intellectual assumptions of a host of traditional learning that are often unfamiliar to most modern readers. In his introduction to the first volume of a new edition of the Meccan Revelations, which was originally published in French, James Morris outlined the main fields of knowledge from which Ibn Arabi draws. Okay, how about Eva? How about you for number, what are we at? 14.
Okay. This includes the four immense multidisciplinary fields of 1, the Islamic religious sciences, 2, the intellectual sciences, all of philosophy, science, and logic in their Islamic forms, 3, preceding Sufi tradition, and 4, Arabic poetry and literature. Even in Ibn Arabi's day, very few individuals would have been seriously educated in more than one of these complexes, scholarships and learning. This is one of the main reasons why we still have very few complete translations of important longer chapters from the Futuha.
Thank you. So Morris then goes on to give a worst case scenario of what is required to fully explain Ibn Arabi's meanings in some passages. Is Aaliyah on tonight, Linda?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm just looking.
Yeah. Stuinard is your last name? Okay.
Sorry.
I think I saw Fuad Faridani though at one point. Are you on there, sir?
Fuad is there, but he's
Okay.
muted.
I'm here. Hello. Yes.
Hey, hi.
Hi. Number 15.
Yes, please.
A particularly dramatic illustrations soon to be available in English as volume 2 of the Meccan Revelations is Professor Denise Grill's introduction, translation, and commentary on selected key passages explaining the science of letters. Some 60 dense pages of French are necessary to communicate what is little more than a page from the original Arabic text. Fortunately, as can be seen in the rest of these selections, many passages do not require such detailed background explanations.
Okay. Thank you, Fuad.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so it's time for a quick break while we stop recording and then start recording again. So you can think about